The Invite is a top three film of 2026. It's a 5 out of 5 star movie. And if you watch the entirety of this review, I guarantee that you'll come away agreeing with me. Spoilers up ahead. To give a brief summary of what the movie is about, it's simply a dinner party where a married couple invites their upstairs neighbors to join them. And while dinner parties happen every day, it sounds insignificant, inconsequential. A dinner party like this does not, and that's what makes it sensational, is the interaction. And there's never a dull moment on screen. I was entertained from beginning to end. And to do justice to a great film like this, I want to go point by point meticulously. So let's begin with the characters. It's only a four-character film where you have Angela, portrayed by Olivia Wilde. Seth Rogen is playing Joe, her husband. Then you have the other couple, Pina, portrayed by Penelope Cruz, and her partner, Hawk, portrayed by Edward Norton. That's it, just four characters. And throughout the film, we're watching it really from Angela and Joe's perspective. We follow them along their journey. We get to see them both before and after the dinner party, whereas Pina and Hawk really only exist to help Angela and Joe along their journey of self realization. And what I mean by that is these characters are great, and that to quote Harold Bloom, they develop, they don't unfold, they feel real. We go through this journey of self realization with them, where they come to actually know themselves, and we get to see the process occur. For example, Angela, when we first meet her superficially, she comes across simply as a busybody. And Joe, he just comes across as this curmudgeon, unhappy guy. But as events occur and things materialize, we understand the underlying reasons. Where Angela, she's a busybody because she's deeply unhappy with her life and she suffers from boredom and this sense of ennui as a housewife, where she actually has to go out of her way to create chores for herself, like purchasing new rugs or buying charcuterie boards. And Joe, the reason he's so unhappy is that he exists in this self-pitying, self-deprecating type of life where he recognizes he's not happy with who he is. He doesn't like the guy he sees in the mirror, where he wanted to be this big, success as a rock star. And instead, he's teaching music to kids. And he even recognizes his own failure, which makes it all the more tragic. And he's just projecting his anger out onto other people. Of course, we don't know this basically until the end of the movie. And it's this journey of getting to understand themselves that makes the characters so real and great. Whereas Pete and Hawk, they're also excellent characters, but in a very different way. They enter the movie as two eccentric people and they leave the movie that same way. But they exist to allow the plot to progress, to really be strange and very genuine. And they just have hilarious lines. All these characters are great. But a line that sticks with me even right now is when Hawk says, I love a good contentious environment. They're very strange and they enable Angela and Joe to reveal themselves. I don't think if it was a regular couple, this movie would never work because it would just be like, oh, how was your day at work? Fine. How was yours? Simple as that. Whereas Pina and Hawk, they're hilarious and they're real too. They're kind of nothing like you've seen before. So the characters are great. They're all funny. They're all entertaining. And with great characters come great interactions. And some of my favorite interactions, ironically, are the fights, mainly between Angela and Joe. And I love the scene right before the dinner party where they're fighting something so small like Joe wanting to eat some of the cheese or Joe forgetting to buy a bottle of wine. Because typically when we think of like these great fight scenes between married couples on film, we think of like Kramer versus Kramer or Adam Driver punching the wall and yelling at Scarlett Johansson and Marriage Story that are full of theatrics and histrionics. But with the invite, the fights and interactions are real. They feel very human, where they play upon people's small weaknesses and foibles and peccadillos, and they're very simple and they're real. Again, typically married couples aren't yelling at each other at the top of their lugs. Instead, they're maybe being somewhat passive aggressive and telling and kind of bossing each other around and arguing over very very small minutia. And the film captures that very well. It truly feels like I'm watching a married couple, and there just happens to be a camera, and they do that great. And then Pina and Hawk, they also have a fight, and that feels real as well. So great job with the interactions, which again speaks to the dialogue. And that's the fact that I'm entertained throughout the entire film when it's just a dinner party. You're not going to see any cars exploding or action sequences, is a testament to how great the dialogue is. It's funny, it's witty. You have Joe cracking these like snide little comments. You have Angela trying to be the best host imaginable, very hospitable, and you have Pina and Hawk just watching, kind of speaking to each other in Spanish. Like their body language is also a great language to play upon. They do a really really good job. So the dialogue's amazing as well. And then something as simple as like the music. And typically, I actually don't pay attention to music in films when it's just orchestral and there's no lyrics like it is in the invite. But the music adds to the stress inducing environment of certain scenes. Where as an audience member, the music is really, I never took music, so I don't know the exact jargon or ways to technically explain it. But I would just say, like, when there's like these really anxious scenes where you're supposed to feel stress, the music really encapsulates that, and they do a good job doing that. So the music was very good, and I know Olivia Wilde. She's the actress that plays Angela. She directed this, and the camera work was also great. And I'm not trying to sound too much like a film buff. I'm certainly not. I don't even know much about camera angles, but I'm simply talking about the fact that sometimes when the camera's turned away, so we don't see the person talking, but we see but we see the listener's facial reactions, is brilliant. Again, the body acting is so good. The faces that Edward Norton and Seth Rogen make are hilarious. It's a great film, and the acting is spectacular. That's another element to talk about. And now I just want to talk about the plot. So we kind of talked about like these general terms. Let's get really specific into what we actually see occur on screen. So the plot, as I mentioned, is they have this dinner party, but what makes it so sensational, despite the fact that there's these small arguments, like Joe doesn't even want them over, and Pina and Hawk pick up on that, is about halfway through the movie, or maybe 50 minutes, we're revealed that Pina and Hawk, they're in a polyamorous relationship, and they're essentially swingers. And they make, we'll call it an indecent proposal to Angela and Joe if they want to engage in this type of behavior. And Angela and Joe, at the first opportunity, almost immediately, they both say yes. And I want to kind of analyze that because it really speaks to the fact that Angela and Joe are in an unhappy marriage, but it's so much easier to not look inwards and instead, choose to distract yourself with these external actions so you don't have to really do some self-reflection. There's a good quote that I wrote down that I was thinking of throughout the film, where it's, he who looks outside dreams, he who looks inside awakens. And it's a lot harder to look inside than it is to look outside. So the second that Pina and Hawk propose this, again, Angela and Joe jump at the opportunity, which is really strange and speaks to the fact that they're not happy in their own predicament, that they have to look elsewhere to fulfill themselves. So they say yes for whatever, and then Joe kind of falls down and it ruins the whole environment, and they're not actually able to, let's say, do the deed. So what then happens is Pina, she's a therapist, and we then kind of go through this great analysis and therapizing. I made up that word with Angela and Joe, and that's where we come to know these characters. That's where I mentioned the self-realization occurring. And once Pina and Hawk leave, they close the door, and the door essentially closes their marriage, and that it's left with just broken shreds of glass. And Angela and Joe are forced to pick it up. And they're essentially given the decision of whether they continue on in this marriage unhappily. The only reason they recognize that they're getting on with it every day is for the sake of their daughter, or if they can just call it quits and get a divorce. And it seems like they're going in the divorce direction, where Angela says, I'm going to go to the bedroom. Joe says, okay, don't worry, I'll sleep in my office. And in that one dinner party, which makes the invite so great, despite the fact that it's an hour and 10 of comedy, the last 30 or 40 minutes is pure drama where Angela and Joe are put under a magnifying glass. And it's this great character study of having them force themselves to realize their own emotions, and recognize that as a couple, it's been a failure. And it takes obviously a lot of courage to admit that you failed at something, especially something as important as marriage. But with the help of Pina and Hawk, they're able to do it. So that, in a sense, is what makes the invite, the dinner party itself, so sensational. Not just the indecent proposal, but more importantly, that Angela and Joe are forced to look inwards. So that's what I like most about it. And the ending is my only critique, possibly, because it's an open ending where Joe is in his office and he's playing piano. And this is obviously very important because we're told that Joe has never touched his instrument in years. He doesn't like to do it. So Joe's playing his piano. And for me, this obviously represents him moving on with his life, him opening a new chapter. He's no longer Joe as an Angela's spouse, but he's a bachelor. He's a new man, essentially. And playing the piano marks that. But then, about maybe 2 minutes of him just solo riffing, you have Angela join him in, and she plays, and Joe gives her a look, and Angela gives him a look. And the film ends with them playing on the piano together. And my issue with that ending is it seems to suggest that they're actually going to stay married, where it's certainly a scene that's, I'd say, filled with love. And not that I don't love love, but the issue is we went through this great journey of them coming to develop as characters and come to and come to recognize that they're unhappy. So it feels like there's this great, detriment in them regressing as characters if, as the ending as it suggests to me, they get back together, they reconciliate, because then all this progress was for nothing. They're just regressing to their older selves. And what's to stop them again from being unhappy in their own lives? I don't understand why, tomorrow is going to be any different than today if they're still married. It's the divorce that allows them to be themselves and actually achieve a sense of happiness, ironically enough. So that's my only problem with the ending. And I'll give it, maybe the benefit of the doubt because they don't say directly outright, we're going to get back together. But that's really what it seems like it suggests. I'd love to know if somebody in the comments disagrees, if they think they interpret it to mean that they're moving on with their lives and this is the last time that they're going to be together. And instead, they're going to get the divorce. But to me, that's not what it felt like. So that's the only critique I might have. And again, it's very minor. The ending is really beautiful. And yeah, great film. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I want to discuss because I could like obviously go scene by scene. The scenes are so vivid and memorable that I think I can get like 8 scenes in a row correctly, but that's gonna just take up too much time. And I'm sure people have their own interpretations of what happened, so I want to leave that to them. But yeah, great film. Uh, Top three film of 2026 easily. I honestly want to say top three film I've ever seen that falls into the dramedy character genre. It did a great job where it really feels it has this amazing comedic aspect and it's interlaced with drama. But then when it has to turn serious, it knows exactly what to do. So if I haven't praised it enough, hear it again. 5 out of 5 star film. And if you've seen it, please let me know in the comments and like and subscribe. Have a great day.